Hey up, lads and lasses, Damphyre here, back again with some more Infinite Lagrange. Today, the last destroyer is up for a guide update, and we are looking at the Winged Hussar. The Winged Hussar is just a fantastic all-round ship. It's 6 CP in all variants. All variants have a use. The anti-ship and the integrated type fill a similar role. Me preferring the integrated type slightly, but I'll explain why when we get to it. So the anti-ship type is a mid-row ship. That being said, you know, all mid-row ships run double HP first. That just helps keep them alive a little bit. Only a little bit. But it's enough to, you know, help get you that 4,472 total DPM output actually out. After that, you have two weapon systems. The main system, which is the Storm Missile System, which is what I recommend upgrading first, or the Carillion Railgun. The Carillion Railgun looks like it should be the main system with 400 DPM, but you only have 4 module slots there. With the Storm Missile System, 400 damage output, but the damage per hit of the missiles is 140, and you fling out a lot of missiles on this system. You get 1 times 4 attacks per round, but there's 2 missile systems, so it's 8 missiles with a 4-second lock-on time. The cooldown is a little bit long on these, so you do want to deal with those. Focus cannon fire, I completely ignore here. It's not worth the upgrade in my opinion. However, hit rate 2% and torpedo hit rate 2.5%. Lock-on radar is really good here. I would also ignore any hit rate against fighters and corvettes on this version of the ship. Just not worth it in my opinion. Get this thing just absolutely smashing through the mid and back rows of enemy ships, and it does that quite nicely because you can get double hit rate upgrades, and it's a missile system which are pretty accurate anyway. You have 6 slots to play with, double hit rate, double cooldown because of that massive cooldown on it is absolutely required here, and double damage. You're only going to get 14 damage per hit extra for each one of those upgrades. So bringing you to 28 extra damage, so you go to 168 damage per hit. But, you know, that's completely and utterly feasible and usable. Physical armor pen, it doesn't really work, so I'd ignore that, to be honest with you. It's supposedly meant to give you the ability to, like, ignore a portion of armor, but as far as I'm aware, I think what that means is when they've got, say they've got exactly the armor that you've got 140 damage, they've got 140 armor, the minimum you can do is 10% damage. So I think that's what this actually means. The physical armor pen, now that I've been testing it more, is it just means that it's them saying you do 10% damage to armor regardless of how much armor they've got. So you could have like a 700 armored ST-59. This will still do 10% of its damage per hit to him, is what that basically means from the more I've been testing anyway. So that's the main system. Absolutely go for that first because the railgun has serious, well, it's not a siege battery then, sorry. It has serious issues actually hitting targets. However, when it does hit, it is pretty damn devastating. It does chunk quite nicely, which is actually really nice. Absolutely, hit rate on this thing is like a complete requirement. You've also got 25-second cooldown, so you do want to pick up that double cooldown again and one of the damages, which is a bit of a shame because this is one of the ships where picking up more damage on this weapon system should actually make it function better, because you'd be getting 40 damage per hit for each one of those upgrades. But generally speaking, because the cooldown is so poor, you're going to get more out going double cooldown, single damage, rather than double damage, single cooldown. The hit rate is an absolute requirement on this system, though. It's awful at shooting. You can thankfully get the extra 5% damage here, and the firing system enhancement enhances your hit rate further. which if you are using this ship, feel free to unlock that. I haven't got round to it because I don't actually run the A-type anymore, really. I don't really run the B-type either. I do run the C-type a lot, but I just don't have room in my fleets. Once I've got, my main fleet of cruisers and battle cruisers with CAS auxiliary out, my second fleet is sort of a strike fleet running corvettes only, with the main fleet only having fighters in it. My third fleet runs all my Eris's and Tauruses that I've left over from, early mid-game as like a fast response, high DPM or flank fleet. So I've gotten to a position where I've got so many ships now that I don't unfortunately run them, but they are still very good ships. I just have slightly better ones, if that makes sense. And my fleets run a slightly different purpose anyway. After that, you have not got to worry about the command system on here. This is where you'd probably go in and pick up your physical resistances, and then running into the propulsion system, I'd go double warp speed, cruising speed, but feel free to go double cruising warp speed. There. The integrated type, and I just think this is a slightly better version of the A-type, and that's due to the fact that it's less CP to upgrade. As you notice, we've lost the Carillion heavy battery system, and now we have the integrated type, and that's because the system gets quad torps, which gets integrated into the missile system, and it gives you an extra module slot, which is actually really, really nice on this thing. But you are a back row ship, so this ship's a bit weird. Unlike most ships where all sit in the same row with maybe one variant in a different row, all of this variants are in a different row. A-type's mid row, B-type's back row, C-type is front row. So, Storm missile system is probably where you want to go first. You can argue the point, like I have done with the AC-721, where you go HP first. But generally speaking, this is not too bad to go straight into the Storm missile system first and just increase its damage output as quick as you can. Hit rate against just everything is really good here, and then hit rate against frigates, destroyers is my recommendation. And then double cooldown, double damage, and finish it off with the reactive explosive warhead. Reason being is because the strategy is probably one of the worst strategies in the game, which is the focus fire, sinks all torpedo systems, which is kind of just pointless in my opinion. And you have 7 slots, so you might as well just get as much consistent damage output of this, and trust me, it's very consistent because of it being missiles and torps. They got pretty damn good accuracy, they got decent hit rate and damage per hit, and it's all on one system, so all these upgrades just bring it into this really nice situation of just being able to go ham on absolutely everything from the safety of the back row. So again, double hit rate, double cooldown, double damage, finish it off with the reactive explosive warheads, and yeah, it's really just great ship. You have got crit on the torps as well, which is an extra little bit of crit chance. So yeah, after that, finish off the armor system with a physical res, and then jumping in, warp speed, cruising speed. The B integrated type is the absolute bane of Xeno, any of the Xenos that are sat in the back row. This thing will absolutely shred through back row ships like absolute no tomorrow, especially in the early game and early fleet design frigate destroyers. You see everyone using Xeno back row. This thing will flat out counter them really harshly. The B-type AC-721's really good at it. This is so much better. It is incredible how quickly these things will kill off Xeno when you got 10 of these in fleet, just flinging endless amounts of missiles at your enemy. Really good ship early game. Falls off mid game like most physical weapon damage ships do, because you start getting into the armor ranges where half of the damage gets mitigated and stuff like that. But yeah, this is just a great ship. Really recommend checking the integrated out if you have it. it will do some work. And the Winged Hussar, I haven't said this yet, but the Winged Hussar is really cool ship design. It's sleek. It looks a bit like a sub, which is really cool. The anti-aircraft type, which you can see, I use quite a bit. Yeah, this thing is currently the best anti-aircraft ship in the game. And I don't mean like it does a little bit of anti-aircraft damage. It does a ton. Where everything I've said previously has, like, you know, it's okay. It does okay anti-aircraft damage. In a 2-minute battle, they might hit between 20 to 50,000 damage. These will easily do well over 150 to 200 plus thousand damage in 2 minutes of anti-aircraft damage. These will decimate through enemy swarm fleets like nothing. Just cut through them like butter. And if you support them on the front row with off-tanks like Winged Hussar, so you'd have Winged Hussars, Eris Heavy Cannon, Taurus Base, or Taurus Assault. Yeah, the Taurus tend to get targeted before these sometimes, and these just go to town on your enemy aircraft, and they will just remove them from the sky. That being said, this does now get moved to the front row. However, if you get the option to move this, there is an ability to move this to the back row. I can't remember which server it's in now. Do so. It's horrible in the back row. Like, they can't deal with it. You can run these alone if they're in the back row, and they'll just ruin enemy fleets. You don't even have to put aircraft in your fleet. Armor system first, absolutely here. Double HP and the double physical resistances is how I set this up. I would recommend, and like before for a lot of mid-row and back row ships, is you ignore the physical resistance until later on. Pick these up straight away because you are going to need them. When you're going to get into fleets or into fights with other fleets, and they have heavy cannon Erises on the front row and stuff, getting this damage resistance really does like help that little bit extra to keep these alive, enough to take the enemy aircraft out. And that's the most important part about this ship, is keeping it alive long enough to deal with the enemy aircraft. Going into the Storm missile system, we can see you've got 25% chance to deal an additional 100% crit damage. You've got special aircraft ammo, so it does 157 damage per hit, and then an extra 170 damage per hit. And you got anti-aircraft support, so it targets friendlies in the same row. It's got everything like just built in. There's no strategy here, you know, to give it row wide or anything like that to spend on, which means you can go absolutely to town on triple hit rate. One is a generic hit rate, which is just really nice. Then you got 2 double hit rates against fighters, corvettes, just to make sure those missiles are on target, doing 300 odd damage per hit. Double cooldown to get as many of those out as you can. And also you've got the additional crit damage here when attacking aircraft by 100%. So now that 25% extra chance to do 100% is actually doing 200% crit damage. Just absolutely really, really nasty. The reason I don't pick up the missile damage here is due to the fact that you're at 157 damage. That's because I got the 5% here, which isn't actually necessary on this whatsoever. The reason I don't pick it up is because it doesn't actually affect the anti-aircraft special ammo. So the only thing it actually buffs is the damage per hit at 150. So 10% extra is only going to give you an extra 15 damage. So you go up to 165. So it just doesn't make sense to run it, because you're not buffing the anti-aircraft special ammo as well, and you're already hitting pretty hard. So getting the crit strike to do a stupid amount of damage just works out really good, in my opinion. After the Storm missile system, you have 2 options here. If you are using this in a early game swarm fleet, go into its situational awareness system. This is where you want to pick up the increase your aircraft hit rate against fighters by 30%, and you can pick up your chance of being hit by guided weapons. Generally speaking, it won't be targeted by guided weapons. This affects the AC-721 itself, not the aircraft. This affects the aircraft, though. So you're in a situation, the guided weapons doesn't matter too much, but you can pick it up, certainly, later on. You could probably pick this up now. But this is another reason why this thing is doing so much damage to fighters. It's got a flat 30% base against fighters and corvettes, with an increase of 20% damage here. It's just gnarly how much like passive stacking hit rate is actually going on here. So you say take the fighters, you got 30% or fighters or corvettes. You got 30% there. There's an extra 15. There's an extra 15. There's 60% hit rate. You get an extra 8% here as well. So you're at 68% hit rate. Just like out of nowhere. It's crazy. It's fantastic. I love it. If you're using this in a situation like I do quite often, which is inside fleets where I don't run actual aircraft anymore, or very few, so the situational awareness system's not going to give me too much, go into its command system and start putting firing calibration in with the anti-aircraft weapons of a company's ships or aircrafts. Have a 10% chance to deal 160% additional damage to the target hit. This is actually really quite nice. It does mean that the Winged Hussar needs to be your flagship, but now you've got an extra 10% chance to do 160% damage on top of its 300 odd damage against aircraft, on top of its 25% chance to do 200% crit damage. And you can all of a sudden see why this thing absolutely shreds through aircraft like nobody's business. You can also pick up anti-aircraft network here, which gives you an extra 15% hit rate just to top it off, as long as this is the flagship and you have 3 of them. Now your 68% hit rate has gone to, is it 70... There's like 82% or 83% hit rate. Just 83% hit rate with all of those damage buffs I've just mentioned is absolutely disgusting. But it is a requirement. We have no other way of dealing with air other than bringing your own air in. We needed anti-aircraft ships, and we finally got one after complaining to the devs for over a year, and it turns out it is incredible. It's a shame the others aren't quite as good as this. I'd love to run LC, light cone anti-aircraft as well, but they're just not that good. After that, as you can see here, double cruise speed, double warp speed, but you can go double cruise speed, warp speed, but I do like my cruise, my warp speed. Should I just pump up this a little bit? There you go, that'll do. I'm at the end of the server anyway, doesn't matter. And there you go. Maxed out anti-aircraft type. An absolute fantastic ship, and generally speaking, this ship fits in everywhere. Early mid-game, when early swarms coming out with Guardians and AC-721s as carriers, wrecks them. They can't do anything if they've got no carriers. They don't have any weapon systems, realistically speaking. So this will just shred them. In your own early game swarm fleet or aircraft fleet with your own carriers, you got situational awareness buffing, more hit rate on aircraft. It's amazing. And then on top of that, like late game fleets, hybrid fleet. I run this in hybrid fleet all the time. This works beautifully in hybrid fleet. It's disgusting in hybrid fleet. I could even see these being run in like some of the heavier fleets with spears and stuff in. Maybe just need to check that out at some point and try it and test it and see what they do, because they're just too good of a ship. These are probably one of the best ships in the game at the current moment. And again, it's a absolutely fantastic looking ship as well. Fully upgraded, this thing's hench, but it just looks good anyway. So the Winged Hussar, as you can see, quite a bit to say about the C-Type. The B-Type also fantastic, but the C-Type does seem to just flat out overshadow its brothers, unfortunately. So, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.